Part 2. Lower Fire Month, 9th month, Day 3, 10:31. Sebas walked while thinking of how to deal with the 5 people who were tailing him after he left the residence. He had no particular destination in mind. He only believed that moving his body and a change of scenery would help him think of any good ideas he might come up with. Eventually, he found that a crowd had formed up ahead. There, a voice that sounded both in anger and laughter rang out, along with the sound of something being beaten. In the crowd, people were remarking about how someone was going to be killed, and that someone should call the guards. Although he couldn't see past the crowd, some kind of violence was certainly occurring here. Sebas thought about taking a different road, but just as he was about to change his direction, he hesitated, and continued forward. He was heading towards the midst of the crowd. "Pardon." With that single word, Sebas moved between the crowd and stepped inside. As if they were in awe of the strange movements of the old man who was slipping through, everyone who was in Sebas's path shrank away from him as he passed by. It seemed like there was another person aside from Sebas trying to make his way deeper into the crowd. From his voice asking to let him pass, he sounded flustered from being unable to go through. Having arrived at the center of the crowd without much difficulty, Sebas confirmed with his own eyes what was going on. Several men in ragged clothes were kicking something all at once. Sebas wordlessly continued on. He approached the men till he was close enough to stretch out his hand and touch them. "What's this, old man?" One of the 5 men there spotted Sebas and asked roughly. "I thought it was a bit noisy." "You want to be taught a lesson, too?" The men moved to surround Sebas, revealing the thing they were kicking. It was a boy. Whether it was from the mouth or the nose, blood flowed from his face as the boy lay sprawled out on the cobbles. He was unconscious from being kicked for a long time, but was still breathing. Sebas gazed at the men. The smell of alcohol hung in the air around them, as well as on their breaths. Their faces were dyed red, and it was not from exercise. Perhaps they could not control their violence because they were so intoxicated. Sebas spoke to them with a blank expression. "Though I do not know your reasons, I believe you have done enough." He dirtied my clothes with his food. I'm supposed to just let that go?" At the place the man was pointing to, there was indeed a slight smudge. However, their clothes were dirty from the beginning. Looking at it that way, the spot wasn't even noticeable. Sebas turned his eyes to the one who looked to be the leader among the group. Although the difference was indistinctable, almost impossible to notice for a human, Sebas could perceive it with his outstanding senses as a warrior. "Truly, this city has terrible public order." "Eh?" From his remark that seemed to be confirming something far off in the distance, one of the men felt that he was ignoring them, and let out a voice filled with anger. "Get out of my sight." "What, Gramps? What did you just say?" "I will tell you one more time. Get out of my sight." "You bastard!" He raised his fist to strike, and collapsed. Voices of surprise rang out from every direction, and of course from the 4 remaining men as well. What Sebas did was simple. He used his fist to hit the man's chin with pinpoint accuracy, at a breakneck speed barely visible to the human eye, and rattled the man's brain in his skull. Although he could have blown him away with a speed indiscernible to the human eye, he would not be able to instill fear in the others. That was why he restrained himself. "Shall you continue?" Sebas asked quietly. As if his calmness and strength rendered them sober, the men retreated a few steps while collectively apologizing. Sebas thought the only one they should be apologizing to was someone else, but did not bother to express it. Sebas turned his eyes away from the men as they helped their comrade up from the ground. He then tried to approach the boy, but halted midway. What was he doing? Right now, he had his own problem that needed to be taken care of immediately, but he was trying to shoulder yet another burden. How foolish. When it came down to it, were these not precisely the types of thoughtless actions, the reason why he was in such a mess in the first place? The boy was saved. He had to be satisfied with that. Despite such reasoning, Sebas approached the boy who was lying on the ground. He lightly touched the boy's back and poured in his ki. A complete recovery would be simple if he were to use his full strength, but that would be exceedingly conspicuous. Having decided he should stop at just the bare minimum, Sebas motioned towards the person that happened to be in his vision.
"Please, take this child to the temple. It's possible that his ribs are broken. Be wary of this, and please carry him carefully on a board so that he does not move around too much."
Seeing the man he gave the instructions to nod his head, Sebas moved on. There was no need for him to squeeze through the crowds. Wherever he walked, the crowd parted before him. As Sebas was about to be on his way, he sensed that the number of people following him had increased. However, there was a problem. It was the identities of the new followers. The 5 who were tailing him from the residence were without a doubt Succulent's men. Then who were the 2 people who began following him after the incident with the boy? By their stride and the sound of their footsteps, they seemed to be adult men, but he could not guess as to whom.
Thinking about it will not yield an answer. Then I should first capture them.
Sebas made a turn on the road and walked deeper and deeper into the darkness. Still, he was being followed.
It makes me wonder if they really have any intention of hiding themselves.
They showed no signs of hiding the sounds of their footsteps. Sebas wondered whether it was because they were not skilled enough to do so, or if there was a different reason. Regardless, he could confirm it for himself. As the presence of passerby grew faint, Sebas was about to make his move when, as if matching his timing, the voice of a man still young flowed from one of the followers.
"Excuse me,"